Hey guys, happy Canada Day. I thought that I should just keep going with these videos, even though it's a holiday, just so I don't fall too far behind. So, we are in your section on questions about God, so theology, and specifically, we're working through some of your questions that would fall under the category of God and the problem of evil. And so today's question is, if God creates all people, why did he create horrible people like Hitler? So, a really good question. And of course, since World War II, that has been a major question that people have been asking. So, the first thing that we need to say is God is not responsible for evil. Um, God is not deterministic. So, he hasn't determined every action of every person on the planet. Um, he has made us responsible because he has made us free. And in order to make us responsible, he must make us free, which means that God doesn't create horrible people. God creates people who choose to be horrible. And so ultimately, we are responsible. We are responsible for our own evil, and we are responsible for responding to God's grace, responding to God. We're responsible. Hitler's responsible for being horrible, not God. And so those are important things to remember. But of course, that leaves some room then. We then have to deal with the problem of evil. And I talked about that last week with the Holocaust, and that, God leaves this space, and it is risky, and horrible things do happen, but that is the only way that people can then enjoy God's grace. In fact, that's what God's grace is right now when it meets our sin. It's the suspension of judgment. So God doesn't just snuff out those who are evil, because if he did, then we would all be in trouble, because all of us, our lives are moving away from God and moving toward evil. And evil or sin is just another way to talk about being away from God. You might have seen my puppy there. Um, but that's not the end of the story, of course. So we're in this in-between time where God has revealed himself, and he's calling people to respond to him, to let go of evil and to take hold of him. But the promise is, and the hope is, that in the future, God has set a day when he is going to judge all things. And so when we say hope, that isn't wishful thinking kind of hope, but that is a sure hope that there is coming a day when God is going to judge all things. And for those of us who desire to have life with God, he will purge the evil from us. And those of us who do not want life with God, prefer evil, then they will be completely destroyed with all that is evil, all that is against God, so that in the final picture, there is no evil left. There is only that which is good, that which is God's. So we're in this in-between time, but there is a day of judgment coming. And so hopefully we hear that as hopeful. And then the final thing I want to say is we need to be careful when we phrase our questions like that. How does God make horrible people like Hitler? Horrible people like Hitler. And of course, we're not Hitler. But by looking out and looking at others and seeing that level of evil in others, we might start to compare ourselves, and it might be a way to look away from ourselves. But we have to ask the question too, how are we? Are we moving toward God? Are we moving away from God? Because we too are responsible for our character, our behavior, and our response to God and his grace. Are we good? Or are we, like Hitler, descending into evil? And again, I'll leave you with that. So, God doesn't create horrible people. God creates people who choose to be horrible. They are responsible, but the promise is that he will judge and he will make everything right. And finally, it's an opportunity as we ask this question to reflect on ourselves. How are we responding to God? And what place does evil have in our lives that might be affecting and hurting others? Anyways, have a great Canada Day. Stay safe and have fun. Bye.